All right, so we'll clip we'll clip the regular part instead of the fun part. We'll get to the fun part in a second. So I was experimenting with this, and this is going to be the perfect opportunity for us to mess around with FM because it's a very 80s sounding synth, and I was going for that fat, bassy sound. Where I think, so this one is one of the most hearable voices, and then you've got a sub also playing through on the second carrier, and then I think this is double the frequency of the first voice, and then this is also the same frequency as the first voice. So basically what I was doing with this was kind of making a saw wave, if you will. I guess I don't like calling that a saw wave, but whatever. Alright, so I was making a saw wave, and then this is like halfway to a square wave, and this is pretty easy to manipulate. There, so you can get from that all the way up to almost a square wave, and that's where you get kind of this fat sound. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and recreate this synth. So we're just gonna go ahead and add Sytrus in here, and let's go ahead and clone this. So this is some stuff too now, and I don't even know what the other pattern is because my patterns are a goddamn mess because I'm a mess. So we'll throw this on mixer track 12 so it matches up, and what we're gonna do is copy, which is copying the pattern here. I'm gonna paste in this pattern, and then I'm gonna turn this synth off. So this is how I'm going to reverse engineer what I was doing there before. We're going to go on here and we're going to just throw this on default. So this is like the most default. This is just a sine wave. That's exactly what it is. This is just a sine wave. And I'm pretty sure with the last synth, I think I jumped into a preset. So let's see. Yeah, so synth 3. So I jumped in here, but like literally all that was playing was the slight manipulation of a sine wave. You see it, like I've already got, I think there were some effects on it, but I've already got that default sound that we just heard a second ago, because this isn't really much. This is just for beginners to jump into a preset and have a really, a relatively good sounding synth within a couple of seconds instead of engineering it. But at this point where we are, we're going to engineer it because it's a lot more fun. All right, so let's go to default, and we're going to jump into this. So we've got the pattern playing, or the pattern laid out already. Which honestly, adding a sine wave behind that original synth doesn't sound bad, so I'll probably jump back to this default in the end and just manipulate the sine wave and then keep that on there. So that sounds good, because this one's fine, but I would rather the sine wave be up here, technically, but it doesn't sound the same throwing that sine wave up there with the rest of this mix, because this operator is also being used to manipulate this frequency. So by me changing this, it's also changing the sound that's coming out of here, and that's like my main sound, and that's the sound it's cranked up. I think everything else is relatively low. I think this is the only other one that's matching it, but those are on the same frequency, so they should. Okay, enough talking. Let's go into it. So we'll turn it up. So one of my favorite things about Sytrus right off the bat is these are the oscillators. So oscillator, these are all the voices, and this is when it's going to play it together. So we'll turn the part down. We're going to throw it up to, let's go to 3 voices. I mean, you can hear the difference in 2. You hear the difference. And then the further you get, the more voices, and then the less you part them. The more you part them, the more off-key it sounds. But when you get down to that sweet, sweet spot, and then you turn it into, let's say a saw wave. So you hear like a distinct difference now between the two. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So this right now doesn't affect anything because I haven't assigned a modulation to any of the parameters yet, but that's going to be a different day because most of the presets will have this modulation set up to, I believe, the cutoff frequency of the filter. So most of the time what I'm going to do anyway is just set those to the cutoff frequency of the filter, because I mean it's essentially the same thing as if you were, where am I going to go for this? As if you were just doing this. Is that right there is an increase in, so it's at 0 for X and Y, and then we're increasing the exact same amount, so just this wave up from X and Y. It's doing it unisonly, so this is a little fun because you get to manipulate the X versus the Y, and you get a lot of different sounds. So, I don't know, it adds, it doubles the sounds that you're about to get. But anyway, let's jump out of here. We don't need that, so I'm going to go delete that because I'm going to forget that it wasn't a thing, and we keep it in the final track. All right. So we've already gotten pretty far from where we started as far as this goes, and I don't even, did I mean to turn that up to 2? I don't think so. There we go. So okay, so what I had before was something like that, and I believe that was on, yeah. And you can already hear that I'm like halfway to what I was doing before. So like literally what I'm going to do is throw this down, and I'm just adjusting the frequency. So you see the frequency ratio is going to be up here when I'm, so frequency ratio, so it's the ratio is half of what the one frequency would be, and the one frequency is determined by like where the pitch is and the notes are and whatever, so it's half of, so I'm just basically tuning this down. And see, usually I like to run these out through the filter, so what we're going to do is do that, and now it's running through the filter. So before, if we just have this turned up and we don't have these two on, this is not going to do shit, because this filter one is now not a part of this. This is straight out. It's straight from this sound to out to your headphones. So what we're going to do is reroute this. So this is going through the filter, and then even we can turn on some FX. So this will go through the filter, which will go through the FX, which will go to out. So it's pretty horizontally laid out, and it makes sense once you understand where you're trying to put your carriers. So one, we're going to carrier one, we're going to go to filter one, we're going to turn it up. So now carrier one is going through filter one. Filter one is going to be running through the FX before it runs out. And there you see the effects. So that is if you want to record what I just did there, the effects aren't going to just cut as soon as this gets down to 0. The effects are their own separate thing, so they're going to last. So you're going to hear the delay go on, so I'm going to cut this as quick as I can. But you still hear, even after I pause it, you still hear that delay. So your effects are going to live. So you got to be careful with those. I usually cut down the effects on this pretty low, and then what I'll do is go into my mixer track and then use the effects from here. So let's go into like Fruity Delay 2. And this is much, more manipulatable. Jesus Christ, can I pick a different word? There we go. So we're going to turn that off right now because I don't really want that on there anyway. So let's go. Okay, so let's go into, so cut off. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So let's turn it. I like that. Okay, so we're going to turn this up. So you can hear as I'm going up, you can hear it. So turning it down, you're probably not going to be able to hear it at a 0.5. Let's turn the whole pitch up. There it is. You hear that sub? So this is at 1. This is at half of the frequency. So if I turn it up, they're going to match. It's just going to sound like a fatter version of the sine wave, or the saw wave. I don't know if you can hear the difference in that. So we're going to turn it down to 0.5 and give it that sub. So it's going to be rumbly once I turn it down to, that is a sub. At that point, you cannot just hear that. But it works. And that's all we really need to do is I just wanted to add some bass to that. And then this is, the envelope filter, but the sub itself isn't going to do. If anything, if I wanted to do anything, I would just copy it from here. But this envelope filter is just being played. So there's nothing really happening over here. And we'll get into the envelopes. That'll be a whole separate video anyway. All right, so these two carriers are playing. And I can adjust the volume either here, or I can adjust the percentage that it's going through here. So now, if we turn this down, you're not going to hear anything because it's also not playing through here. So these are two ways that you can affect the volume on here. You can get really, really specific. And we hear that, so let me even turn on the envelope. There we go, so you see the attack's working now. This is the attack, decay, and sustain release. So, see, I wanted that. What I'm going to do is just do that. No attack build. It's just a regular decay, and then it just cuts off. I like that. So it's just a pretty basic hit. We're going to copy that state. I'm going to jump over here. I'm just going to paste that state. So the whole thing matches. So now this whole thing is playing. And what's really cool is once you get into these texture sounds, I can manipulate this. So this sound will show up a couple seconds after the sub, and you get kind of a wow, that build feel, that transition that you want. So let's keep those two, and we're just going to keep these playing for the next part. So what I'm going to do is add a harmonic. All right, so this is pretty bassy, but it's at the level that I'm going to want it. Like even down here, I'm going to want. Yeah, there we go. So it's pretty bassy, it's pretty rumbly, but it's at the pitch that I want it. And so for me to hear this a little bit better, I'm going to add one more carrier very quietly that is double the pitch of our original carrier. So this is just going to, like on the radio or when it's turned down or on phones, you're going to be able to hear the sound without knowing why you can hear the sound so well. And that's because all the right frequencies are picking up. So even if this is a bass sound and it's hitting an E, and you can't tell that it's an E based on the sine wave that is technically the lowest bass frequency, which is the fundamental frequency. You'll be able to tell it's an E because of this frequency, because this frequency will be the same frequency as the fundamental, but it'll be very, very quiet and it'll be high enough for you to hear. So your brain will be able to connect that low rumble is probably the same frequency as the high one that you're subconsciously hearing. So it's kind of a producer's trick, but it's fun because then you know how to get those, those really nice sine wave bass hits that you hear on the radio. And you think, how does that sound so clear and so good? And it's because it's because of harmonic frequencies, harmonics. So it's, you hear it? It's already. So even what I'm going to do is keep the attack on like that. So it just shows up a second later, So let's turn this one down and hear what it's doing. There we go. That's what it's doing. So I'll have it show up a little earlier. And then let's get weird. There we go. This is my favorite part. You hear? That's kind of voicey. I like that. So we'll leave that. We'll turn this up. And then we'll adjust this. it almost sounds like it's still there. What I did was turn on one more, and I think I just threw a pretty basic saw wave to cut through all the madness. So let's even turn that down a little bit. So now there is a little bit of a second where it's not, but that'll be good because this is almost going to act out as a side chain where the kick is going to hit right at this spot and then this is going to build right after. So you're going to get these really nice, what do they call transients, where you're going to be able to hear the kick super clearly and then the synth is going to jump up just as clearly as the kick, but neither of them are going to like overcompensate or undercompensate for each other because neither of them are going to be playing at the same time. So they're not going to cloud each other, but they're going to sound just as clear. So you're leaving that like millisecond worth of time for the kick to play and then this to play. So it's all about balance. You're going to balance out these instruments really nice. So this is basically what I did. I don't even think I did this much with the operator 3 frequency. What did I do here? No, this is just another square wave. I was pretty basic. I was a basic bitch when I was doing this whole thing. Look at that. Look at those waves. You recognize those? That's the only one that's weird. That's a sine wave. Square wave, so basically a fucking saw wave. And then I got weird with the frequency modulation, which will be an entire other thing because it's one of my favorites to do. So what did I even do with the frequency modulation? Let's just pull these up side by side. So we're going to pull you up and then we're going to pull, and apparently only one Sytrus operator can run at a time. So that's something that I just learned here and now. So what did I do here? 1, 2, cool. All right. So let's just copy that and see how it sounds. 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. Like it? No, it doesn't, but that's also because the frequency, oh my gosh, the filter. Yeah, so let's turn the filter down. So it's a little more growly. It's just not as, this is just longer. So if we make that a shorter hit, I bet that we can get back to that Synth 3 pretty quickly. But I wasn't really following all of the things I did for Synth 3. Like, I don't think there are that many more differences, but there were slight ones. Apparently this, and this is exactly where you get that hit that I'm talking about. You see the cutoff is just dying right there, whereas mine is 110% just, yeah. So this is just an open. So it's essentially the same. Like when it's turned off, it's essentially just this. So when you hit it, it turns on. When you're done hitting it, it turns off. You know? So when these are all like this, it's just basically this. And even so, I'm going to copy that and then put that back into there because I want to keep that the same. And then we're going to save, and then we're going to turn on our shitty synth that we made, and then we're going to play it behind the beat. So this is the one. Haha. There you go. I see that this one's a lot louder, I think, than my Synth 3. So that's fun. And it's time for me to go.